In this video, I'm going to be covering a lot about the circulatory system and its disorders in just 6 minutes. I'm also going to cover the anatomy of the heart and other parts of the circulatory system. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. The circulatory system consists of 3 things: blood, blood vessels, and the heart. The main functions of the circulatory system include maintaining homeostasis, transporting nutrients such as oxygen to the body, and lastly, providing a defense against pathogens. Now, let's talk anatomy. The major organ responsible for the functioning of the circulatory system is the heart. The heart consists of 2 atriums and 2 ventricles, which together make 4 chambers. Additionally, the heart has 3 layers, the outermost being the pericardium, the innermost being the endocardium, and the middle layer is the myocardium. Alongside that, the heart also consists of 2 valves, the tricuspid and the mitral. The mitral valve can also be called the bicuspid valve, so you might see it in different names. The heart also has veins and arteries connected to it. Arteries are blood vessels that contain blood that flow away from the heart, and veins are blood vessels that contain blood that flows into the heart. Arteries can also be further divided into arterioles, which are smaller than arteries, and capillaries, which are the smallest form of blood vessels. And for veins, veins can be divided into venules, which are smaller veins. Now, let's go a little bit deeper into the arteries and veins. Arteries normally are bigger than veins, but also contain bigger walls. But there's a caveat to this. This usually means that the space in between the arteries is usually less than the space between the veins. The pressure in the arteries is also higher than the pressure in the veins. Like mentioned earlier, veins are usually smaller than arteries and also contain thinner walls. This usually means there's more space between veins and that there's less pressure. And to prevent backflow fighting against gravity, veins also contain valves. Now, let's talk about how impulses are generated for the heart and how the heart pumps blood to the body. The part that generates the impulse is called the sinoatrial node and is also called the pacemaker. The pacemaker is controlled by 2 major sets of nerves, one being cardiac nerves and the other being the vagus nerve. The cardiac nerves use 2 main neurotransmitters to speed up heartbeat. These include epinephrine and norepinephrine. However, the vagus nerve uses acetylcholine, which is also another neurotransmitter, to slow down the beating of the heart. After the sinoatrial node generates a signal, it then passes it down to the atrioventricular node. From here, the atrioventricular node passes the signal to the bundle of His. From the bundle of His, the signal then passes to Purkinje fibers, which are located near the bottom of the heart. Then, from the bundle of His, 2 main pathways derive, one being the right and one being the left. At the end of each of the bundles, there is something called Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers also get the impulse, which is what makes ventricles contract and pump blood to the body. Now, let's talk about circulation of blood from the heart all through the veins and arteries. First, from the right ventricle, blood is pumped through the pulmonary trunk. From here, the pulmonary trunk splits into the right and left pulmonary arteries, which carry blood to the lung. And note that this blood is deoxygenated, as this is pretty important when it comes to the transfer of nutrients. Once the pulmonary arteries reach the lungs, they then split into pulmonary capillaries. In these pulmonary capillaries, carbon dioxide gas is expelled while oxygen gas is reabsorbed. Now the blood is oxygenated. And now from here, oxygenated blood flows through the pulmonary veins back to the left atrium of the heart. And from the left atrium, blood is passed into the left ventricle, which is then passed to the body via arteries. One of the major arteries that pumps blood is the aorta, and it's the biggest artery. After blood is pumped to the body via arteries, the blood then flows through veins and back up to the right atrium. Then over here, the right atrium flows back into the left ventricle, and the entire process starts all over again. Now, let's talk about some of the diseases of the heart. First, let's talk about hypertension. To first understand hypertension, we need to know more about systolic and diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is the pressure of the arteries when the heart contracts, meaning that blood flows to the arteries. Diastolic pressure is when the heart is at rest in between beats. Hypertension is high blood pressure, meaning that your systolic and diastolic pressures are elevated, and this can lead to many things. In a healthy person, the systolic pressure should be about 120 millimeters of mercury, which is how blood pressure is measured. For diastolic pressure, however, it's usually much lower, and it should be around 80 millimeters of mercury. In hypertension, the systolic pressure is above 130 and the diastolic pressure is above 90. Next, let's talk about aneurysms. Aneurysms are the puffing up of the artery, most notably the aorta. The aorta is the biggest artery, so an aneurysm there could be detrimental. Aneurysms usually come above the age of 50 and are usually caused by multiple factors. Aneurysms are mainly caused from the weakening of arterial walls. Some of these include hypertension, fat buildup along the walls of the arteries, and inflammation and infection of the artery. More into atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is fat and plaque buildup on the walls of arteries due to bad eating choices or the lack of exercise. There are many ways to prevent atherosclerosis, such as having a healthy diet and exercising frequently, but moreover, atherosclerosis is also linked to a lot of other disorders such as hypercholesterolemia and arteriosclerosis. Hypercholesterolemia is just more cholesterol in the body, which comes from bad eating choices, and arteriosclerosis is the hardening of artery walls. These are just some of the most major heart diseases, and this doesn't include everything. I'll be sure to leave a few on screen so you can go research them yourselves. If you made it to this point in the video, I'd kindly ask you to subscribe as it motivates me and helps me out. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. Thanks!